Greetings, adventurers! Welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Industrial Complex. My name is Dallas Deluxe, and today, my friends, have I got a tale for you. Today, I'm going to tell you about one of the strangest tales, not only that I've ever heard, but one of the strangest tales that is so old, and yet it contains so many layers, and every time I look at it, I see another layer. And to this day, no one has really got a perfect explanation of what happened. So let's get into it. I'm talking about the Travis Walton case. Yes, sirree. This is one of the more famous cases in this business. This is one that lives in infamy. So let's get it on. November 5th, 1975, Travis Walton, then 22, part of a 7-man crew working the Apache-Sitgreaves National Forest as a logger on a U.S. forest, USDA logging contract. Now, everything's going fine. At first, ordinary day, they're coming home by 8:30 at night, driving back down a logging trail, and they see, oh yes, that ultimate harbinger of all the tales on this channel, a light in the sky. Yes, sirree, there it is. Now, as they get closer, they realize this is more than just a light. Oh no, this is a literal, dare I say it, fire in the sky. Now, they could see that there's some sort of object or craft hovering just above the tree line, which is pretty low. So Travis then does something that he either enjoys or regrets for the rest of his life. He gets out of the cab, gets out, and he rolls up on the object. He gets closer and closer and closer until, zap! There is a bright light, shoots from the craft, shoots him in the chest, blows him back about 20 feet into the air. He lands in a crumpled mess. He looks dead. The other 6 men in the truck, oh devil, they don't like the looks of this. Boom, they are gone. Hightail out of there. And I'm just gonna tell you straight up, I don't really blame them. Okay? After seeing your friend and coworker get blown through the air like that for what is all intents and purposes an alien spacecraft, most people would get out of there. They would think he's dead, we're gone. And they take off. I don't blame them. Not one bit. Now, Travis, on the other hand, not so lucky. He doesn't have the option of taking off. What does he do? He wakes up. Wakes up on a gurney. Okay? Standing over him are 2 alien beings that we would later describe today as grays. Short, gray skin, bulbous eyes, or bulbous heads, black eyes, as Travis put it, the size of quarters. Okay? A little bit different than the grays we think of today, but there it is. They stare at him with these eyes, the stare that he says gives him nightmares for years. There's no communication, we're gonna come back to that later. But still, the stare, good God, freaks him out. Bats them aside, gets up off this freaking gurney, runs out of the room. The grays are stymied. They're not all powerful, people. Not all powerful. What do? Okay. They call in reinforcements. They call in the big man. He's later in the next room. 2 men come in. They look human, although they've got masks / helmets on their faces. So he can't really see them, but they look human. He describes hoses leading from the helmet / masks, to the wall of the ship. He's led to another table, laid down. They put a helmet / mask on him. Boom! Out like a light. That's the last thing he remembers. Next thing he remembers, he's lying on the cold ground. He is on the pavement the craft, boom, shooting up away from him into the night sky. And his clothes are on backwards. Oh my gosh, we see this all over the place. Every time a person is put back, their clothes are somehow on backwards or disheveled. It's as like whoever undressed them and redressed them does not understand clothes. We see this all over the place. And this is no exception. Now, he doesn't know where he is, starts walking down the road, finally gets to a phone booth, bing! Here's a picture of the phone booth. This is the actual phone booth he used, right outside a town called Heber-Overgaard. It's at the foot of the Apache-Sitgreaves National Forest. And then he calls Mike, who is the head of the crew that he was on, also a good friend of his, saying, bro, what happened? I'm in a phone booth, my clothes are on backwards, what's going on? And Mike is like, bro, we thought you were dead. You've been gone for 5 days. Travis is like, what? What do you mean 5 days? And yet there it is, man. Now, this causes some uproar in the community. Number one, the townspeople aren't having it. They ain't buying it. They don't like it. They don't want the attention coming in, like from the reporters, etc. And I get it. This is Snowflake, Arizona. Population 2,000 at that time. This is 1975. This sort of strangeness has not quite permeated, you know, the popular culture at that time. Okay, so I mean, I get it. Also, the 6 men on the crew, when they came back from the forest that night, they went straight to the sheriff. And the sheriff has some questions, understandably so. 7 men go into the forest, 6 men come back. The sheriff's gonna be a little inquisitive. He's gonna ask some questions. He may not buy at face value this alien story, and I don't blame him. Okay? Now here's the thing. It's now been 45 years, you know, since this episode took place, and yet all 7 men have never changed their story. All 7 men are still telling the same tale. Anyway, let me talk a little bit about some of the things sort of outside. If you take a step back from this case, you will see exactly why this case is so compelling. It's compelling not only for what it contains, but what it does not contain. So number one, if you just take it at face value, what it contains is incredible, obviously, okay? You know, they're being shot basically by this craft, for lack of a better term, at the missing time, etc., etc. All these are already wild on their own. But when you take that in the context of all the other tales out there like that, it becomes phenomenal for what it does not contain, and that is telepathy. When he is on that gurney, he does not encounter any telepathic forces. In other words, every other person who claims to have this kind of situation, they all report telepathic communication by the beings. Now, in this case, we did not see that. This tells me one thing. Number one, he was not being stalked. It's long been my contention that people who are being stalked by the visitors, they are already psychically sensitive, which is why the beings are able to communicate with them telepathically. I don't think they can communicate with everybody telepathically. I think you have to be on some level, at least some degree, psychically sensitive. Travis is probably not. Now, they stared at him with that unnerving stare, but there was no communication. That's key, okay? That's key that this was an accident. Now, Travis says that when he got shot by that bolt and flew through the air, he thinks he died. He thinks that killed him, that the aliens brought him back to life on their ship. That very well may have been, okay? The craft was hovering there, right above the tree line. There's no reason for them to be there. There's nothing out there. There's no reason for them to be that low. He's not being stalked. There's nothing there, and yet they're there. the craft might have been having an issue. He got too close, zap. Was zap intentional? Was it a defense mechanism? Or was it just what happens when you get too close to an energy source? You're gonna get zapped. There's a reason you don't touch a power transformer. Same thing applies. So, like I said, this is compelling for the lack of communication. It's also compelling for the possibility that he was killed and brought back to life. If the craft was malfunctioning or having an issue, he got too close. Now we see this in many other instances, okay? The malfunctioning craft that leads to contact. We saw it in Roswell. We also see it in the Maury Island affair that we're gonna talk about in another episode. Another malfunctioning craft. We will get into that later, I promise you. So, now there you have it. 40 years on now, Travis is still telling his tale. He's got a book. There was a book published at the time called The Walton Experience, published in 1978. There was a book I read on this situation many years ago. That was probably it. It's been too long for me to tell, but I'm pretty sure that's the one. He wrote his own book on the subject called Fire in the Sky, which is published after the book, or after the movie, and meant to capitalize on the movie. Now the movie, of course, deviates quite a bit from, you know, the original tale, but that's Hollywood. You shouldn't trust anything or anyone that comes out of Hollywood. But they gotta put rear ends in the seats. You can't just have a tale about a logger who blocks out. You gotta pump it up a little bit. You gotta sell some tickets. I get it, it's all cool. It brings awareness to the phenomenon, and that's what's important. As we look deeper and deeper into the phenomenon, we see why this is so compelling. And you see why this case is so compelling. He was not stalked, he's not psychically sensitive, and the craft seems to have been having a malfunction, and he may have been brought back from the dead. Oh my gosh, 4 major reasons why this is a major case. I wish the 3 reasons that I put forth, the last 3, got more, you know, press, but they don't. They all focus on the zap and the being shot up there in the movie and everything else, and him being naked in the phone booth, which is only in the movie, didn't actually happen. But there you have it, folks. Movies versus reality. Sometimes there's a difference. Anyway, folks, this is Dallas Deluxe signing off into the ether, into the dark, and today balmy end of the paranormal industrial complex. Good night.